I shall end your line for what you have done this day. Calidor is the reason why his village was attacked. But he doesn't know that yet. As a dungeon master, you want your players to be absolutely hooked on your campaign. Today, I'm going to share with you my best method to do exactly that, the Luke, I am your father method. This video is a part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, you're going to want to check that out first, where I go over steps 1 through 3 of the Luke, I am your father method. Today, I'm going to be talking about steps 4 and 5, but first I want to welcome you all to Adventure Guild, a place for people who absolutely love the game of Dungeons & Dragons, people interested in ideas, tips, and conversations to elevate our beloved game. I'm Jeff, your humble professional dungeon master. Let's get on to steps 4 and 5 of the Luke, I am your father method. Here we go. First, I want to review just very quickly the first 3 steps so we have some context for this method. Step 1 is going to be where you look at each one of your characters' backstories and find the part that you think is the most interesting, the most intriguing. Now, in step 2, you're going to get with each player and you're going to talk with them about their backstories, but specifically that one thing that you identified that we're going to call our key hook, the most interesting part of their backstory. You want to talk with each player, you want to get clear on the details. Specifically, you want to get really clear on what that player wants their character to know about the event and what they don't know about the event. For instance, in our example in video 1, we talked about Calidor, the warrior whose village was destroyed by a dragon when he was young. Does he know why the dragon attacked his village? Does he know if the dragon is still alive? Those are the kind of details you want to really suss out in step 2. Now, in step 3, what we're going to do is take our characters' key hooks and we're going to wreck our campaign world with it. We are going to let those ideas, some of them might not make sense in the story we have in mind, in our grand architecture of our world, what we have going on in it. But we're gonna let those player ideas invade our world, change our world. We're going to think about how we could actually make the elements that these players have come up with for their characters important in our story, in our campaign world. With that all laid out, let's go to step 4 of the Luke, I am your father method. Step 4 is to make your players' key hooks relevant somewhere within the first 1 or 2 sessions of your campaign. Now, this can be really difficult to weave in all these different story elements, especially if some of your players' key hooks are a little bit out there, a little bit contrary to what you've come up with in your campaign setting. But this is why I told you in step 3 to wreck your world with those ideas, to let those ideas change your world a bit. And if you've done that, then you've already started to figure out ways you can seed those key hooks into your story to become plot points in your campaign going forward. Now, it's going to be really tempting to back burner this part of things because, again, it's hard to work in all these different ideas and you just want to play a damn adventure. You just want to get the first one in the can with your players, but don't skip this. Don't skip this step. Really push yourself to seed those key hooks into your first 2 sessions. I'm going to give you an example now, going back to Calidor, our warrior whose village was destroyed by a dragon. As Calidor enters the town where our campaign, our story is to begin, he stumbles out of the rain into a dimly lit tavern. An old man looking sullen and glassy-eyed, surrounded by empty mugs of ale, looks up at Calidor as he comes in and shrugs off the rain. His eyes brighten as he sees you, Calidor. You know this man, and he knows you. Calidor, my boy, I never dreamed you made it out of there. I was good friends with your father. Did he? His voice trails off as he sees your shoulders slump almost involuntarily. Now, This is an example in session 1 where you just take that little bit of Calidor's backstory and you pepper it in. You give this old man, this survivor of the dragon attack, maybe his own little piece of the backstory that fills in some missing information that Calidor decided his character didn't know or didn't bother to create. And that's going to be a really memorable moment for that player. Let's do another example with Irina, our warlock who escaped a cult long ago. In session 2, the party is investigating some mysterious disappearances of townfolk, and Irina is speaking with one of the town watchmen. I tell ya, it ain't right. People go missing here and there, it's the way of things, but the whole family, all of them, just gone into thin air, and now Captain's telling us we're not supposed to go talking about it. Just close the case, he says. I should not be speaking of this, but I'll tell you true. When we looked in their home, we found etched in the door frame, right there by the front door, a symbol, and it looked as if it was etched recently, I'd say. Gave me the chills to look upon it, though I know not what it means. An eye surrounded by flames. Irina bears this very tattoo just above the hairline on her skull, once worn proudly, now worn shamefully. Suddenly, Irina and her player realize the cult of the Burning Watcher is involved in this disappearance. Seed these key hooks early in your campaign. Now, if you've got 5 or 6 players, this is going to be especially difficult to not do this and make things look like a hodgepodge. You might have to have some people waiting till session 3. Just do your best to get them early on, because what's going to happen is your players are going to really appreciate how you are letting their backstory come into the world and be relevant. They are going to see how the past is shadowing the present, and this is really going to leave them wanting to see what's next. The piece de resistance of the Luke, I am your father method is step 5. In step 5, we're going to look at each character's backstory, at the key hooks in there, and we're going to use the blank spots, the unknowns, the mysteries, to create epic plot twists and villains and moments in your campaign that are just going to blow your character's mind. But first, take a moment to like and subscribe below. Now, on to step 5 of the Luke, I am your father method. This step is where the method really gets its name. Think about Luke Skywalker as a Dungeons and Dragons character. What might have been the key hook in his backstory? Luke was raised on a backwater planet by his aunt and uncle. Luke's player didn't really define who his parents were, and then tragically his aunt and uncle were killed by soldiers of the Empire. Now, this hypothetical player that's created Luke Skywalker as a character didn't really put much thought into who his biological father was. But that is where our Dungeon Master George Lucas came in. And with that little hole in Luke Skywalker's backstory, created one of the most famous family dynamics in any piece of sci-fi, I would argue. Let's go to our examples to kind of see how this really works. Back to Calidor, our warrior whose village was destroyed by a dragon when he was young. Calidor and his player have no idea why this dragon destroyed his village, but you do. Calidor's great-grandfather was a paladin, and he and his companions, near 120 years ago, snuck in to that dragon's lair and killed its hatchlings. The dragon caught them in the act, tore them to shreds, killed them all, but not before making the doomed paladin a promise. One day, long after this, I am going to find all of your descendants, every last one. By Tiamat's rage, I swear it, I shall end your line for what you have done this day. Calidor is the reason why his village was attacked. But he doesn't know that yet. And what's more, he doesn't know the dragon is still out there with him sitting on its kill list. Suddenly, you have a villain that is way more compelling than anything you would have come up with in a vacuum. And for a second example, let's go back to Irina, our warlock who escaped from a cult. Did she really escape from that cult? Think about that local lord who early on in your campaign became a quest giver for the group. He has sent them on many missions, always praising them and rewarding them well. What happens in session 15 when he has a brief private conversation with Irina? You know, Irina, something I've been dying to say all these months. I just want to let you know the Order still loves you, Irina. I have watched over you and guided you this entire time in the name of the Burning Watcher. In fact, you and your companions who have done such work for us, everything has been to our purposes. And Irina, I'm so proud. You are rising to be one of our most promising agents. Irina, you have never really left us. And we are all still your brothers. Again, you have a villain that is going to be way more interesting than anything generic you came up with. Something that player is going to feel a sense of connection with and even a sense of responsibility for. So that is the Luke, I Am Your Father method, guys. That's it.